Holy final aileron, Batman! Building with the boys now, issue 65 of Hachette's Build the Batmobile Tumbler. In this one, we'll be installing the final aileron to our build. Good, because the ailerons haven't been a lot of fun, have they? And this is a bit of, you know, repeat what we've done before, but it's what it is. And then it's done. It's done. After this one, we'll move on to support frames and connectors, which looks like light work, but it's what it is. It's all relevant. It's all got to be done. So we will be sticking with this piece for now. We are moving on to the cockpit though after that, back to the cockpit and back to the we're doing the center console, so that'll be fun. Lots of nice bits coming up in this one. Again, we're not bolting anything together, but we're getting there. I promise you we're getting there based on what the last two of this one is. We will be having a bat chat at the end of this one, sans Batman, so we're going to be talking about the effect that Dark Knight had on the rest of superhero cinema, because it did have a fairly massive ripple effect, which caused some films to be greenlit that probably shouldn't have been, but it also caused some to be cancelled. We'll go into exactly how, what, when at the end of this one. But without further ado, let's get this one built. If you haven't yet, please remember to like and subscribe. But let's see what we get inside of number 65. Okay, I'm sorry, this bloody highly exclusive collectible build when the boys' money can't buy key rings just keep getting in the way. I swear that's not product placement. Here we are with 65. So inside of here, we know what we're getting. This is a repeat performance. I recognise all these pieces. So we've got our brackets there, bracket there. We've got our screws, which are WP, so it's going into plastic, AP going into plastic. In here we should have our final aileron, which we do. So that is what we're doing in this one. It's a bloody nuisance, screwing ailerons. It's not fun. I haven't enjoyed it, but it's necessary and it will look cool when it's done. So let's get this one built. Okay, so taking the piece we built last time, this is where this aileron is going. It's where the missing one is. We're going to flip this one over. I'll have this one right here. And then taking this bracket here, we're going to pop this one in. And it's going to go in, let's make sure this is the right way around. Yeah, it's going to go in like so. So let's go and drop into there, that way around. Okay, now is the thing where you need three hands, because we've got to hold all of this together as we put the aileron onto the top of this. So let's get this flipped. Okay, so if like me you have the eyes of a 100-year-old mole, this isn't the easiest thing in the world to do, but we're going to pump this one over here, and we're going to try and line the screw up. I'm going to try screw this through. That kind of feels like it's going. I don't know if it is. See how far we get before is that screwing through? Oh my god, it is. It's a miracle. Right, let's get a tiny screwdriver to get this done. Am I going too small with them? I'm going too small with this one. Okay, so that's that one screwed in for now. Now we need another bracket for this to screw into and hold onto. So let's get that bracket ready. Okay, now you have two very similar brackets here, but if you look carefully, they do have R2 and R3 printed on them. So I can tell you the one we need for this one is the one that states R3. So R3 is going to be going into here, like so. He says, he hopes. Yeah, I don't think so. Says it's this one though. Am I just completely, yeah, I'm just completely nosing this, that's what it is. I haven't put it in properly. It's got to be that way. Duh. Yeah, it's the one that says R2, it's not the one that says R3. That's nonsense. How have I just got that so wrong? So look, actuator 65D. Because I'm putting it in the wrong spot, that's why. Let's try that again. This is where 65D and R3 goes. Bloody hell. Right, so that would be R3, which is this one here. And it's gonna, there you go. So they look the same, but they're not. I mean, you can tell by the fact that one fits, one doesn't. So it's gonna go in there. I'm gonna flip this one over, screw it in from the bottom. So flipping this one over, don't worry about your actuator coming out at this point, because you just don't need to. We're gonna put that back in a second. But don't worry about it wobbling around. It's secure, it's in, that's all that matters. It's now just a case of screwing in this bracket here. Again, a third hand would be good. So if you were born with 3 hands, well, now's your time to shine. If not, if you've got a friend, partner, loved one, understanding wife that's happy to hold this while you screw this in, now is very much their time to get involved and claim that they built this. Because it's what my kids would do. My kids would put in one screw and go, do you remember when we built that tumbler? Like, did we build it though, boys? I do give Jack full credit for R2-D2 though. I mean, that is all him. I think I put in 2 screws into R2-D2. And he's done literally everything else. Very proud dad of that. Okay, let's put this one in as well. Yep, that's not going in. Let's get this lined up properly. This bloody hatchet, I will not miss ailerons. I'm making an absolute meal out of this. Right, let's get that in properly. Now we've got that one screwed in. Now we'll adjust our aileron back into the normal position, because we can lock it into this pin now when we put the other one in. He says, yeah, there we go. Okay, so now that will lock into this pin up here. So that should hold that in place a little bit. Not loads, not at all. Fine, we'll do it the hard way. Right, now we're going to take the final bracket here, and that's going to slot in there like so. Same again, we're going to flip this one over and screw this one in. But before you do that, let's see if we can get this thing to actually hold in here. Now there's 2. It should be possible. Bloody hope so. Yeah, look at this. I hate these things. I just dropped the bloody bracket. Okay, now we've got it. I'm going to screw this in from behind. So I'm going to go a bit gentle. I'm going to get one kind of half in. I'm going to put the other screw in. And that should be it. I hope. I already can feel the bloody ailerons fall out, so we're going to have to put that back in and then tighten this up. Right, let's get this over. Right, get into where you're supposed to be going. Right, you go there. Now let's tighten it. Done. Right, thankfully. Okay, so there we have it. That is the finished piece. We now have all 4 of the ailerons in, and that is how we're looking. I mean, it's looking fierce, right? When these are going to move and whatnot, it's going to be totally worth it. That is not fun to do. It's somewhat of a nuisance. But coming next is brackets. That's what we're doing next. Support frames and connectors. That's what we're doing next. But that's all for this build. Let's have a chat. Done. Thankfully, that's the last of the ailerons. It'll last for a while at least. And it's looking nice, right? I mean, it's looking somewhat like a bat. Imagine that. It's looking lovely. I mean, with the bronze and the black, and it's looking good. But thankfully, that was fiddly, man. But I'm expecting more of that. With the shape of the tumbler, I'm expecting a lot more fiddly pieces, but it's the way it is. That is all for build instructions. If you're just stopping around for build instructions, thank you for stopping by. Please remember to like and subscribe. It helps channel massively. And Gotham needs us. If you're still hear our bat chats, well, we're not talking Batman. We're talking about what the fallout of Dark Knight was. And it was big. Because the Dark Knight hit as big as it did at the box office, and it hit big. I mean, at one point they were thinking this thing was on track to become one of the 3 highest grossing movies of all time. They did that weird thing where Hollywood can't just have a hit and then trust someone else to make a hit. Hollywood has a hit, then they just try to replicate it. Always like, right, how do we do that again? And it's like, yeah, the success, yeah, definitely. Well, what you do is you trust a writer, you trust a vision, and you let them go and do their thing. You trust a director, and you're like, look, we trust you. Because they didn't trust Christopher Nolan going into this one. They thought they were going to have a disaster on the hands with this movie. But that's how you have a hit. You trust the artist to create art. That's what you do. But instead, what they think is, right, so what the public are telling us is they want really dark superhero movies. No, that's not what we're telling you. And it was, so what they're saying is they want hyper-realism in a superhero movie. Nope. It works for Batman. This is what happens. Every time a Batman film hits big, they decide that every superhero movie needs to be jet black. It needs to be dark as we can possibly get it. It needs to be edgy, gritty, noir. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Batman needs to be that, because that's Batman. He's a bat. It's all set at night. There's a clue in the name. But they decide, no, everything needs this. And it's like, well, no, because what works for Batman wouldn't work for Superman, and what works for Superman wouldn't work for, say, Spider-Man. What works for Spider-Man wouldn't work for the Fantastic Four, which wouldn't work for the X-Men, which wouldn't work for the Punisher. They're all their own different body. You know, it's like saying Frankenstein was a really big hit at the cinema. So what we need to do is we need to make Romeo and Juliet a gothic horror. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. But for some reason, superhero movies is what they do. So they greenlight and rush into production the darkest property that DC have got, and it happens to be this one. So Alan Moore's The Watchmen is beloved amongst the comic book community, but also, I mean, just as a piece of literature, it's fantastic. It really is. Watchmen is amazing. Watchmen is probably my most loaned and never returned book. I've loaned out, I think, 5 or 6 copies of Watchmen now, and not one of them has found its way home. Because it's just that good. It's really good. And they tried for years to turn this into a movie, and it was, at one point, it was deemed unfilmable. It was like, you can't really film this because of particularly the character of Dr. Manhattan, who exists everywhere all at once. So he exists throughout history, but at the same time, it's so hard to explain it. It works in comic panels. It's hard to do in movies. But again, the technology wasn't quite where it was when they first started looking at it. And Alan Moore had fallen out with DC at this point as well. So even though DC owned Watchmen, because it was their comic, it was Alan Moore wrote it for them, they'd fallen out. And they'd fallen out over badges originally. There was a thing with badges and a watch, I believe, to promote Watchmen. That was what started their falling out. And then famously, Alan Moore didn't want anything to do with the movies because he didn't like what had been done with, I want to say it was, everyone thinks it's V for Vendetta, but it wasn't. I want to say it was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I think it was. I think he was that unhappy with what they'd done with it because they really did bastardize that movie. If you take the source material of The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and you compare it to the movie, it's like, wow, they created characters specifically for the movie. Famously, Tom Sawyer is in the movie. He's not in the books. And the reason why they put Tom Sawyer in the movie was to appeal to American audiences. That's why he's there. That's why they created him for the movie, because the thought was that Americans wouldn't like it if there wasn't an American for them to relate to. When in reality, the Americans didn't like it because the rest of the world didn't like it because it sucked. It was a terrible movie. But all they use of the source material is literally just the spark of an idea. So I think Alan Moore's name and being attached to it, Alan Moore's The League of Extraordinary, like, this is not my League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He was very unhappy with it. And that trend's continued. He wasn't happy with that. He wasn't happy with From Hell. And I don't believe he's watched V for Vendetta. He said he didn't want to. And he hasn't watched The Watchmen. And there was a very funny interview with Zack Snyder, who went on to direct The Watchmen, where he said, look, I understand that he doesn't support the movies. He said, I hope one day in his, he sits down in his home in London, puts on The Watchmen, and thinks, that wasn't bad. He said, that'd be enough for me. Alan Moore's response was, I live in Northampton, which I loved. I just thought that was fantastic. It was like, I don't live in London. That was so good. Famously, he donates his fee, so he gets a fee from these movies, but he donates them to the art department. So whoever works in the art department on these movies gets Alan Moore's fee. That's how it works. What a guy. But they tried for years to turn Watchmen into something, but because it is so dark that's what they went for. But then they bottle it. And this is the funny thing. So they kind of, we want the darkest thing we've got. And then they lost their nerve when it came to filming it. And a lot of the darker elements of the book Watchmen aren't in the movie. And I'm thinking, well, why have you done that? That's just mad. But that's what they did. But we'll talk more about the release of Watchmen and exactly what impact that had on the next one, because we'll be back very, very soon with issue 66 of Hachette's Build the Batmobile Tumbler. Until then, take care. You can contact us at buildingtheboys@outlook.com, in a world where you can be anything at all. Just be nice, and remember, Gotham needs us.